Hello, readers! Welcome back to Reading in the Middle. I'm Manisha Jeffries, and this is where we explore the books that stay with you long after the story's over. Today, I'm super excited to welcome Kate DiCamillo, a New York Times bestselling author, two-time winner of the Newbery Medal, and the recipient of the Newbery Honor. Her books include Because of Winn-Dixie, now celebrating its 25th year anniversary, The Tale of Despereaux, Miraculous Journey for Tulane, and Flora and Ulysses, just to name a few. Her newest novel, Lost Evangeline, is book 3 of the Norendy Tales trilogy, illustrated by award-winning artist Sophie Blackall, two-time Caldecott Medalist, 5-time New York Times bestselling illustrated winner. In this episode, Kate and I talk about where the idea for Norendy started, how she and Sophie brought it to life, and what she hopes young readers will carry away from Evangeline's journey. Let's begin. Kate, hi. Welcome to Reading in the Middle. How are you today?
I am very glad to be here. That's how I am. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing superb, and even better because you're on the podcast with me.
And as we were saying before we started, we also might have a dog on the podcast, but we might not if he keeps on sleeping. So, yeah, it could
That's
be 3
okay.
of us right now. It's us, yeah.
Oh, I love that. You know what? That's part of having a furry baby, you know?
And that's part of having a conversation, right? Is you never know what's going to happen in a
You
conversation.
never know. If you had a cat, the cat would walk right onto the in front of the camera and just sit there. That's what would happen. So you just gotta go with the flow, right?
We're going to go with the flow, like a twig on the banks of a mighty stream, as John Candy says in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. Now, Kate,
Mm,
Lost Evangeline begins with a whisper.
mm.
This image of a tiny girl who feels the pull of something beyond her window. As a reader, I could feel that mix of wonder and loneliness on every page. I just loved it. Do
What a
you?
beautiful thing to say. What a beautiful thing to
Oh,
say.
you're welcome. Well, I felt it, and I read it in one sitting. So, I just wanted to know if do you remember like the first image that arrived to you when you began this story?
Yeah, it's one of those stories where when I talk to people about writing, I say that sometimes that you should never throw anything away. And this story is one of the examples of that. I came up with the idea of this little girl, no bigger than a mouse, who plays a game called Lost Evangeline with her father like 15 years ago. And it was one of those stories that I kept on pulling out and working on, and it wasn't working. But I would try a draft and then put it away. And then what happened was I came up with the notion that Evangeline wanted to go to sea. And as soon as she has that dream, that longing that you were talking about in the introduction, that wanting, then the whole story came to life.
Oh, it sure did. And I just, like I said, it's tiny, but it's so beautiful. And you've said that it was the shoemaker who unlocked the story for you. And I have
Well,
to
those
say,
2
yep,
things. It's him
yeah,
wanting it's him being a shoemaker, and, this is the thing that this is the weird way that writing works, is my grandfather was a shoemaker,
oh,
and so it's just like that word has a lot of power for me, and so that was the key in the door, and then this longing for the sea, which both the shoemaker and Evangeline have. That was like the thing that unlocked it and opened it wide.
and you don't see too many, unfortunately, shoemakers anymore, or any. Am I saying this correctly? Cobblers.
Yeah,
You-
cobblers. Yeah, no, it's true. Not in day-to-day life, and also not in stories when you think about it, although they used
Mhm.
to be a huge part of stories, Think about the
Yeah.
shoemaker and his elves, which is a story that I love because I'm always dreaming that, somebody else will do the work for me, you know?
Yes, me too. Yeah. Um, you know, and so when you mention that, how the shoemaker unlocked the story for you, um, and that moment when he lovingly crafts the tiny shoes, it broke me a little. What did what did he reveal about Evangeline, or even about your own way of seeing the world?
Well, it's interesting because where it and, when you said it breaks you a little, what breaks me a little is Sophie Blackall's illustration of those tiny shoes and that tiny bed that he makes for Evangeline and the
Mhm.
tiny and that, when I look at that, I tumble back into being a kid myself and the power of those small things. And I'm
Mhm.
short and petite and so I always feel impossibly small in a large world. So it taps into that feeling too, and the terror of being small, but also the bravery that you still have access to and that you can still live your dream, you know?
Mhm. And powerful and mighty.
Yes, just because you are small does not mean that you can not be powerful and mighty if you
That's
become
yeah,
self. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the third story set in Norendy.
correct. That is correct. Yep.
After the puppets of Spellhorst and the Hotel Belzar.
Yes.
Uh, as someone who's read all three, I noticed how these books feel connected by a quiet thread, almost like Norendy itself is listening. What keeps calling you back to this world?
Well, let's just take a moment here and say how much I love the idea that Norendi, this magical place, is listening. It wants these stories told. That is just to me. Norendi is this place that is kind of like our world if you squint, and so it becomes magic becomes possible, and that is part of what keeps drawing me back. That possibility for magic and the possibility for the impossible becoming real, And so that
Hmm.
goes to, Hotel Balzar and Marta's father returning. It goes to, the puppets of Spellhorst and the impossibility of them, finding a story, and then they do find a story. And then Evangeline, how is it possible that somebody so tiny can make their dream come true and go to sea, you know?
And as you mentioned before, Sophie Blackall's illustrations, they are so magical, and just been beautiful too. Just it took me back, as like you mentioned, as being a kid. Like I always remember like Thumbelina.
Mm.
Something like something, and so I just so magical. And
Yeah,
Evangel oh,
that
go on.
yeah, no, in that one, I'm gonna see if I can pull it up here. Hold on. This illustration, that gets into it's like you become hold on. This. So when these
Yeah.
shoes are being put there, it's like you become both the tiny things and the hand. So it's that thing that then lets you tumble right into that feeling of being a child,
Yes.
And yeah, right? You feel like you're holding those shoes and that you get to move them around, and that to me is just amazing. So I interrupted you. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. We're having a conversation. That's what happens when you have a conversation. That's what happens. But we mentioned again, Evangeline is small, but she's brave, and she doesn't wait for someone to rescue her. She decides to move, to walk, to act. For middle grade readers who sometimes feel small or unseen, what do you hope they'll take away from her journey?
Exactly that. That you can choose to act. And the thing is, it's like I've thought about this quite a bit. It's like what I get from books as a reader, and it's related to that notion. It's this idea of at any given moment, you can decide who you want to be in the world. And that's what stories give me, is that idea that you can, if you want, change, take action, become, and become yourself. And so books to me are the permission to do that, and also the blueprint for how to do that.
Well, I like that, the blueprint, how to do that. Yes, I definitely believe that. And you've also said that you carried this idea for years before it found its form. I love that because it mirrors Evangeline's own persistence. What finally told you
That
it was time?
point, yeah, that is a
Hmm.
wonderful point, is that it's that waiting and not giving up. Exactly. Yeah. Okay, I stepped on your words again. Go ahead.
Oh, you're not stepping on anything. No, but I just wanted to know what finally told you that it was time, uh, that this little story was ready to be big.
Um, huh. I don't know, but I will say this.
Hmm.
The times seem right, for this feeling of being small in a very big world and acting anyway. And so it is, I would think that probably the story got told because I needed to remind myself of the power of acting, in the face of big circumstances, of taking action. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Yes. And also I want to mention about the book, you weave in the sea, an albatross, a mermaid, even the scent of salt and leather. It feels so physical, almost tactile. Were those details already living in your imagination, or did they surface as you wrote the book?
They surfaced as I wrote. It's a great question because, it goes to how I write all the time, which is not knowing exactly what's gonna happen, and all of those things were waiting there. And the interesting thing is this book about the sea, and the longing for the sea and all the magical things, like you said, the albatross and the sea spray and the mermaids and the whales, all of those kind of things. Sophie Blackall, who, as we said, did the illustrations, she has always dreamed of going to sea and loves going to sea. So this was, and I didn't know that when I was, it just ended up in exactly the right hands. So you can feel Sophie's longing and also her celebration of the sea, and her incredible illustrations.
They're breathtaking. And when I saw the spread of Evangeline standing beneath the enormous shoe, that contrast of size and courage, it felt like a story within a story.
Mm. Yeah, like as in I should tell another little story. And if there's one thing I love, it's a story within a story. So do not tell me to go off and do it. And I'm just going to write something
Do
down
it.
here while I'm thinking about that. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I have learned always, always to have, I don't know if you do this, but I carry a notebook with me everywhere. Do you carry a
Here we go.
Yep,
I sure do. Yeah.
never without it, because I don't know what somebody else is gonna say that might
Mm.
prompt a story idea, or what's gonna pop into my head, or what I'm gonna see or hear that I think might become a story, so
And I can't remember everything.
right.
I try.
Well, let me tell you something. From here at 61, that's not gonna get any better, so carry the notebook, yeah.
Yeah, I always have this notebook and it's very handy. And as a librarian, I'm
Mm.
always struck by the way your stories balance sadness and hope. And, there are moments in Lost Evangeline that ache, but they also shine. How do you hold those two emotions together when you write?
Yeah, it is not something that I do consciously, but, when I was a kid, um, I hated books that condescended to me and told me that the world was only nothing but a happy, sharp-edged place where everything made sense, because what I saw when I looked at the world and what I felt, as I lived in the world, was that things were happy and sad at the same time. So
Mhm.
so many of these books, tap into that kid me, and that kid was worried and amazed, overjoyed and terrified, and so all of those feelings go into the book, I'm writing to the kid that I was, and I'm writing to the kid that I still am. It's like, "Look, the world is beautiful. Golly, the world is terrifying. Look, there's magic everywhere if you just stop and pay attention. Look, there's sadness everywhere." So, all of those things, it seems to me, belong in a story about being human.
And look, you can also make changes too if you choose to.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Exactly. You can, at any given moment, decide who you want to be in the world. Yes.
Mhm. One of my favorite passages is when Evangeline realizes that being small doesn't mean being powerless. It reminds me of Despero and Edward Tulane, characters who carry grace in unexpected forms. Do you see Lost Evangeline as part of that same emotional lineage?
It's funny because when you were saying, "Why Evangeline now? Why did this story come to light now?" And I said, "Because of maybe I needed that reminder about smallness not meaning that you couldn't be courageous." And I thought of Despero, and I thought, that was the story that I needed then, that being willing to go down into the dark dungeon to try to rescue the thing that is beautiful and that matters. And it's a beautiful assessment of Edward Tulane that he has unexpected grace. Is that how you said it? Because so much of that book is that thing of Edward figuring out how to love, and that is the unexpected grace that we all have access to in this world, is that we can turn around and decide to love in the face of fear. So,
I like
wonderful
that.
assessment. Yeah.
And Kate, you've often said you write with you often write with a child, not for a child. And after reading Lost Evangeline, I wondered which version of young Kate were you writing with this time?
Well, like you, I loved Thumbelina, and I got Thumbelina relatively early in my life. But the other book, and I remember getting the first copy of, there are 5 in the series of this book at my public library, a book
Hmm.
called The Borrowers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those tiny little people that
Hmm.
live in the floorboards of your house, and those books I checked out all the time from the library. I loved that idea that if you turn slowly enough, you might see little people running along the floorboards of your house. And so I would say it is the 9-year-old me, that
Mhm.
wants these tiny, um, courageous beings, in the stories. Yeah. Yeah.
For teachers and librarians who share your books aloud, what question or moment from Lost Evangeline would you want them to linger on with readers?
Before I try to answer that question, can I just say, and this seems like a good place to say it,
Oh, yes.
thank you to all the teachers and librarians who are doing that read aloud. It is such a gift that you are giving. And you don't, I always think about, I grew up in a house that was filled with books. I had a mother who took me to the library twice a week, who bought me books, who read to me. And I lived for Mrs. Boyette every day after lunch reading aloud to us. So I think if it mattered that much to me, how much does it matter to the kid that's not getting it anyplace else? So it's just a big thank you to you librarians and teachers. It is life-changing and sometimes life-saving for,
Mhm.
to get those stories read aloud. And so what moment do I want them to linger on? Maybe this at the end. I was just, in Houston, doing a signing with Sophie Blackall for this book, and
Wow.
yeah, we had a kid who came through the line who had a question about the end. And I'm not gonna tell y'all about the end. I know that you know about it, but I won't say it in case, for the readers who haven't read the book. But she wanted to know, is it a happy ever after or is it not a happy ever after? And Sophie and I both said the same thing to her. It's both things at the same time. And so I would love it if when somebody gives, the huge gift of reading the story aloud, if when they close it and say, "Was that a happy ending or was it an unhappy ending?" and talk about that together. I would love that.
I like that because so many times, like if you read a book and after the last page, you keep remembering or thinking about it, and it's good to have those conversations. So yes,
Yeah, it's
definitely.
a way for us to all be together in the book again.
Mhm. Now, Kate, and I want to thank you. You've given us so many unforgettable characters: Opal, Despero, Flora, and now Evangeline. Which one still sits on your shoulder and whispers when you least expect it?
Your questions are so good and they're so beautifully phrased. Who sits on my shoulder? Sometimes I have to say this, there is a pig that sits on my shoulder and asks for another story, and that's Mercy Watson. And, this is the thing is, like, Mercy Watson couldn't exist without the brilliant illustrations of Chris Van Dusen. And Chris
Mhm.
Van Dusen also writes and illustrates his own books, and he kind of like, that's it for Mercy, so we can't do any more. So sometimes I still have that pig
Oh,
on my shoulder oinking, demanding another story. And sometimes on my shoulder, you know who's there?
oh,
Is Opal, and she's not asking for anything. Rather, she's just saying, "Remember, you got to do all of this, and my story was the first." And so it is more just Opal is there to remind me always about how grateful I should be that I get to do this magical thing of telling stories. Yeah.
yeah, and we love it, and we're happy and that you do it. And you know who's sitting on my shoulder? Flora. I love her.
Ah, you know what? Flora and Ulysses was so much fun to do, and I don't know that Flora is sitting on my shoulder, but occasionally a squirrel will hop up there and say, "What about a book of squirrel poetry?" And I think that, right? Wouldn't that be fun to do? That would be so much fun.
Yes.
So
It would be
yes,
nutty. It would be
yeah.
nutty.
Yeah, and that's what we would call it, nutty poems by a squirrel. Yeah.
Squirrely poems by a nutty.
See, we can get it done.
Oh my gosh. So, here we go, Kate. I don't know if you know this, but I do this every podcast with my illustrators or authors. We have our lightning round, and
Okay.
you have to answer the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready? I don't know why I always say but I always just try to brace I try to brace everybody because there's no right or wrong answer, right? Okay.
All right. Okay.
Okay, here we go. What's your favorite writing snack?
You know what? I've never been asked that question until like last week when I was in Houston. I don't eat while I write. I don't. I just don't do it but if I could have any snack that I wanted without worry of repercussions, I will tell you, it would be flaming hot Cheetos. I love them so much. Yeah. But I would never eat them when I'm writing because I would get dust all over the keyboard. Yeah.
Well, there's a way to eat those without that. You can eat them with chopsticks.
Oh, I had a vision of me going face down in the bowl, and
we could do that too. You can do that as well. Now, which of your books still makes you laugh out loud?
Flora and Ulysses. I rewrote that book so many times, and so many times as I was rewriting, I would laugh out loud. Yeah.
It's so funny. It's funny. And I've listened to the audiobook too. I love it as well. So yes. It's such a
the audiobook is great.
Now, if Evangeline could borrow one thing from Despereaux's world, what would it be?
That spool of thread so that she could find her way back to her father.
Yes. What's a book that always reminds you why you write?
Charlotte's Web by E.B. White.
Bingo, I love it. Yes, it's one of my favorites. And finally, what do you imagine Evangeline keeps tucked in her tiny pocket for courage?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Have you ever gone to like Sanibel Island? And there are these tiny, tiny little shells that are pink. I would imagine, and they're very, very smooth inside. The exterior is pink and the inside is a deeper pink. And I think they're called periwinkles. I'm not sure. But I would imagine that Evangeline has half a shell in her pocket, one of those tiny shells in her pocket, and that she can put her little thumb right inside of it, and that it gives her courage.
Oh, I want a tiny shell so bad.
Yeah. I'm going to go looking for one of those periwinkles when I hang up. It's like, do I still have one of those? I think so.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so. And Kate, is there do you have a social media website where our listeners can follow you and reach out?
The first thing I always like to say there is that you can find me. The best place to find me is in the library.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, a librarian is waiting. Librarians have never failed me. A librarian is waiting to put a book in your hand. So that is the best place to go. You can also, there's a website for me, katedicamillo.com, and I'm on Facebook, but mostly look for me in the books, and I'll look for you in the books. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
You gave a beautiful interview. Your questions are so beautiful and so thoughtful. I'm so grateful.
Oh, thank you. And I want to thank you for joining me. A Lost Evangeline feels like a story written for anyone that has felt small and for everyone who's still brave enough, to look for wonder. And I just want to just let our listeners know that it's out now and go get it. It's beautiful. Illustrations by Sophie Blackall. It's numerous. It's just amazing. And bravo. It celebrates everything, courage, connection, and the quiet power of story.
Thank you. And I'll say, go and ask your librarian for a copy of the book. And also I'll say, thank you, teachers and librarians and parents and grandparents for reading aloud to your kids. And also, I'd like to say this sometime to kids. Don't forget, your adults need to be read to, too. So while your dad is making you breakfast, while your mom is driving you to school, you can read them a story. They'll be very grateful for it. Yeah.
They will.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Kate, thank you so much for joining me. This was a pleasure.
What beautiful, beautiful questions. What beautiful, heartfelt questions. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime. That was Kate DiCamillo, whose stories show us that even the smallest voices can carry great courage, that journeys may lead us home again, and that imagination forges connection. A New York Times bestselling author, 2-time Newbery Medal winner, and recipient of the Newbery Honor, Kate continues to write for readers of all ages and to inspire those who share books every day. And a special shout out to Sophie Blackall, 2-time Caldecott Medal winner and renowned illustrator, whose visuals bring Lost Evangeline to vivid life. Thank you, everyone, for joining me on Reading in the Middle. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, share it with a fellow reader, teacher, or librarian, and help bring these stories into young hands. Until next time, keep reading, keep wondering, and let your next favorite book find you.